If you also know me, you know I hate the word should. But we so often are looking back into I should haves and making ourselves wrong for things that have already happened. It already fucking happened. And it might have been really bad and you might have really messed up and done something or chose wrong, but it already happened.
Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. D. Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Relationships Podcast. I'm D. Jaffe, and Sophie is in Mexico. And we just finished an epic weekend. That was the first Ignited GLOW event. Those of you, the 80, 90, 100 of you or so who were there know exactly what I'm talking about. It was so amazing to get to connect with you one-on-one and meet you in person and sit and stand and talk with you and just get to share and be in the same space. That was probably one of the most magical things for me in this weekend. The rest was the amazing content. I mean, holy crap, everybody. We're going to have a link for you guys to purchase access to the sessions if you weren't able to be there, or if you were there and you just want to be able to source it and attach to it and connect and learn from it again. Shaman Durek, Alexandra Roxo, Brittany Piper, the amazing panels that we had, Shannon Algeo. I mean, I would do an injustice trying to even summarize everybody who was incredible on this thing. But we have a surprise for you guys. So the surprise is, even if you weren't there and even if you don't pay for the access to get post-GLOW, or what we got started calling after GLOW, at the event access, I'm going to drop one of the most amazing panels that we had, obviously with my incredible wife, Sophie, with Tricia, Your Joyologist, and so many tidbits, so many amazing pieces of information there shared about how to bring positivity into your life, how to live your life in the most positive way possible. And so if Sophie's not here, I don't want to bore you with my voice too much. If you really want to hear me talk, I'm on again in a couple of days. I'm barely on. I think I talk from the corner in this specific panel. But I think it really speaks to what it takes to embody and possess positivity. It's not always a cakewalk. It doesn't always happen automatically, but these women, they have it down. So without further ado, I'm going to switch you off, let you hear our little break here in the middle, and then listen and pay attention. And if you were at GLOW, I'd love for you to share this with others. You know, there's like a freebie for everybody else. You paid money to get in there. Let's share some free stuff with other people who weren't there. And tag us, right? Screenshot this and tag us and let us know which of these little messages that these incredible women shared on stage were your favorite. And if you weren't at GLOW, I would definitely love to hear from you in terms of what it is about this panel that connected for you the most. All right, sit back, relax, close your eyes if you're not driving, and enjoy the ride.
This episode of the Ignited podcast is brought to you by Philosophy Superfoods. The Philosophy offers cleanses and other nutritional products that are unlike any of the other supplements and detoxification programs on the market. Why? Because they actually nourish the body with whole, live, nutrient-rich foods instead of depriving you and leaving you hungry. Have you ever tried a cleanse only to find out that you can't make it through a whole day because you're starving? Ever try a superfood shake that made you nauseous because it was so disgusting you'd rather not eat? The Philosophy fixes all that with a simple set of offerings that load up your body with nutrients while actually tasting good. Makes sense, right? Each of the Philosophy Superfood and Protein blends is vegan, raw, gluten-free, and has absolutely no filler ingredients. With over 15,000 satisfied customers, including some of the world's biggest celebrities like George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Lea Michele, and over 10 years of experience, this is the best stuff you can get. To buy some or find out more info, go to our website, thephilosophy.com. So these three beautiful women who you've met for the most part, I think everyone except for Tricia has spoken on a panel or been a part of a talk. They are some of the realest, also positive, but mostly real women, and I am so honored to call them my friends and to be inspired and lifted. I go to them to feel positive. I go to them to be lifted, but it's from a really grounded, real place. It's not from that, like, you know, we talked about the difference, we keep talking about this, the difference between those events that are in wellness where, like, it's very on the surface of wellness, like, yeah, face cream. Or there's, like, this event where it's, like, really going deep, and it's also wellness, but on a deeper level of, like, going through the real stuff. That's what I consider this to be in terms of positivity, this panel. So I'm gonna let you guys introduce yourselves and anything you wanna say about positivity, wellness, anything you wanna share.
Hi, everyone. My name's Aarona Lea, who was here yesterday. Everyone, right, it's a 3-day thing. So it's a continuous event. So I taught yesterday on intuition, and I was on the panel about healing through trauma. And I have the moon deck over there on the table, which I'm the author and founder of. And yeah, I was just telling Sophie in the back room, I was like, it's so funny you put me on the positivity panel, because I feel like that's been so much work for me. Like I sometimes see the problem first. I like to go deep into the shadow. That's kind of my nature, and people who know me really well know that. But really what it is that I have a wide spectrum. And I've learned to allow that spectrum, the shadow and the light and everything in between, to coexist in my life and to learn from it. And through that allowing is where I've found my ability to be positive. And I think the real positivity comes from the positivity in real life, is that even if I feel in a darker place, or I'm really moving through something difficult, I always remain teachable and curious. And so that's my way of remaining positive in the face of life's challenges, and in the face of my patterns that I've learned over the years from having a mother who was depressed and bipolar and an addict, and learning from that, that I can give myself permission to be really, really happy. And it doesn't mean I'm necessarily leaving anyone behind. Or I can cut that cord but still love them and be there for them. So that's been my journey of positivity, because I don't personally resonate at all with the good vibes only memes or the kind of bypassing of things. I just don't relate to that, and I think it creates more shame or disconnect for people who are going through things, or for people who actually followed the 7 steps perfectly and it still didn't quite work out. Or they paid that high price tag for a coaching program and it didn't work for them, to say, like, that's just not your formula. You don't have to feel shame about that because you're afraid to be open in the wellness world about the fact that, like, that formula didn't work for you, or you're not on the good vibes only train. And there's a difference between, there's discernment's also important. So good vibes only in the sense of we want to surround ourselves with people who expand us and activate us. That's where I would agree with the good vibes only. I don't want someone who's coming in and competing with me, or maliciously trying to trip me, or energy sucking and having boundaries. So that's the side of, like, having someone like Sophie in my life and other people who are really positive by nature teach me how to soften and how to not overthink certain things, so that I can step into my ability to be positive in a way that feels authentic. So learning that authenticity and having that discernment between, like, good vibes, the healthy side of it, and not the bypassy side of it.
Just wanted to share that what came up for me when you were speaking is that I met you on a retreat that we were co-teaching, and we had met briefly beforehand to kind of debrief it, but when I flew to Yalapa, Mexico to meet you for this retreat was in one of the darkest places of my entire life. And it was right after I cheated on a D on a New Year's, if you've listened to that Going Deep episode. And I was shattered. And I came to this retreat, and you didn't even know until like day 4 when I like let it all out, but that you held such space for me in that way and allowed me to experience the fullness of the shadows, which allowed me to come back to a positive place. I was really hard on myself. What I did was wrong, and it's this, and ashamed, and breaking up my family, and all those stories. And you opened up the door to give me permission, because I am very much a positive person. I was born, like that is really like my default. But I was struggling. And you allowed me to open up that part to me of looking at the shadows and not being afraid. And that brought me back around to standing with my feet in the ground and feeling like everything was going to be okay. So thank you for that. Just had a flashback.
Someone like you who comes from an authentic place of positivity and light allows that for me too. And it's just like it's a give and take, and it's a mirroring of also teaching me how to hold that space and that we can learn through it. So thank you. Yeah.
I'm going to use your mic because mine's feeding back, because I know that. Hi, I'm Tricia, your Joyologist, and you'll hear more from me later. I'm your Joyologist. But funny, I was even saying to Sophie too, like, oh, they named my talk Positivity. That's probably not what I would have chosen, but it works, because obviously your Joyologist and like everything that I share is affirmations, but it's because I am not at all about, let's just see the glass full, let's turn your frown upside down, that I'm very much about seeing what is real. And this is what's happening. This is what's happening, and it may fucking suck. But how can I choose to get through this? Because I kind of have to. So whether it's a thought that's coming up in my own mind, which we'll talk about later, or something really shitty, or you're stuck in traffic, whatever it is, this is what happened. This is what's happening. So how can I turn this to a positive? And I even, if you follow me, I have a weekly I Call Bullshit video where I call out common thoughts that we have. And one of the ones I called out is, what was it? There's been so many. But the thought that I used to say this, and I still somewhat believe in it, to think this isn't happening to me, it's happening for me. That's very lovely, and I myself, I think, used to share that message. But what I more resonate with, for me, it's easier to say, this isn't happening to me, but this is happening. That's it. Like, this is happening, so where am I now going to take it? So yes, I am a very positive person, but not like fake, but I'm very much constantly real and constantly like, oh, hey, Tricia, you're judging yourself. Hey, you're in a doubt, you're in a fear, which we'll talk about later. And so how to be positive in your own mind where it matters most. Now it's you.
Good. And to me. Hi, guys. Jenny Jiles. I met you yesterday, if you were here. I'm a cooking coach here in Los Angeles, and listening to these women, it's a little hard to kind of, explain kind of my journey around this positivity talk, but I would, better. I'm a recovering cynic. And, you know, I was an ultimate worrier, just all the time, thinking of worst case scenarios in all the ways when I was younger. And I just couldn't see anything else. It was a protection for me. If I could worry enough to death about it, then I could protect myself from whatever it was. And, you know, we all have our individual traumas, and my dad died when I was younger, and I think that was kind of the catalyst for me, because, well, if I had just worried enough, then he wouldn't have died, right? And I could have protected all of us somehow from that. And over time, and a lot of work, therapy, spiritual work, all of that kind of has to make you aware that you can't control so many things, and you have to have a choice of how you're going to be in the world. And I shifted my life so many years ago after recognizing traumas and so much that I'd gone through, and it feels so much easier now. I don't have to so actively force a positivity. I can accept the negative shit for what it is. And like you were saying, we're in traffic. These things bad are happening, but it is what it is. And I'm still really, really grateful and feel more positivity just for simple moments that I'm here and these, even with all of you guys, like just being. And it helps just to know that, I don't know, that we're feeling safe just accepting all of our challenges and all of our worries and all of our traumas just to be.
So 2 of you on this couch have gone through a divorce in the last few years. And some of you talk about it openly, some of you don't. And both of your experiences really inspired me, different approaches. Jenny, I want to start with you because you have kids. What I viewed, your experience was so positive. Like, I'm sure there was a lot more to it. But as your friend and holding space for you, the moments I would check in, I was so proud to be your friend and to see the way you handled that with kids, to choose a more positive choice for you and your family. Can you share a little more about that experience?
They work. They were just feeding back.
Yes. So divorce, another mild trauma. But again, that piece is hard too, because you're trying to stay positive in a way, but there's another party, right, that's affecting your kids and all of that. And without trying to control, because along with cynicism and control, which is a huge issue of mine too, like if I can just control, that's better. Sorry.
Controlling how you.
I know. It just feels so strong this way. But, trying to control how he's being, how I'm being, how the kids are receiving it, all of that. And, we have a very interesting situation where we're together a lot. And I had to just get myself in a place that I had to choose to reframe it in my mind. For our kids, right? I couldn't let every little thing bother me. I couldn't go down that hole. And not that I didn't sometimes, and things didn't erupt, and I wasn't miserable and screaming and whatever. But I would say, as a whole, once I kind of made that shift of like, this is what it is. We've got to make the best of it. And I would say one of the pieces that I feel really good and really proud of too is that he came along too. It wasn't like that at first, but as he watched me kind of not focus on all the shit that was happening or all the stuff that we were stuck in together that we couldn't escape from. I mean, we were there and there was nothing we could do about it. Once he was kind of seeing my shift, then he started to soften as well. And we both just kind of started looking at things so much better for each other. And now, kind of more on the other side of it, can really see so much positivity in the entire experience. We've known each other since we were 15. It was like cutting off an arm or a leg. But now we are brother and sister. We are family, we are together, and our active focus is taking care of our kids. And it just kind of took conscious choice, really, to say, hey, we're gonna really do this. But again, it was a slow process with that. Yeah.
Aarona, do you want to share a little bit of your story? I didn't hear any of this come up yesterday, so hopefully it's not redundant. And just how you stayed positive. I mean, crazy that we received you in LA at our house the weekend. That's crazy that you received me in Mexico and then we received you in LA. You stayed with us that weekend, that you moved, that you were looking for places to live. And so many conversations and crying and card pulling before there was a full moon deck. Do you want to share a little bit about your process?
Sure. I I feel like I'm still getting, I feel like I have arrived at the other end. It's recent in the last few months, quite a bit major, but really the last year moving towards this moment. The divorce papers just went through while I was in Bali a few months ago. Yeah, I got back and I really felt the energetic shift when I got that information. But the separation started happening in 2017. So I moved out of that. So I lived in New York for 18 years, and that's where the Moon Deck was created. That's where my marriage was. That's where, a big part of my life was. And I grew up here originally and have family here, so I decided to come here for a few months. So I moved out of January 2017, and then 3 months later, my mom died. And so that was like a really intense, major shift in life, a huge loss on many levels, definitely the illusion of what I thought I was building with someone completely shattering, and a lot of pain and confusion. And that went on. I mean, I arrived in LA like really swampy. Like I just feel like I was swampy, and it was just in the swamps. And like anytime someone asked me how I was, I just cried. And I was had to heal at my own pace. And my mom lived in Colorado, so I had to kind of pass through there on my way here. And I had to really honor my pace and my way of healing, because not everyone around me maybe agreed with how I did it or the pace in which I did it. And then there was also quite a bit of support in my life. And we don't talk yet. Maybe we will one day, but we don't have children, and I don't see a need for that right now. Maybe one day, we'll see. But I really, I think the positivity came through how deep into the healing I went. It felt like a massive initiation to have all of that happen at once. And this idea of like, I chose that relationship for a lot of very authentic reasons, but I also chose it because I think that's what I thought I was supposed to do, and was following the plan and the conditions that I grew up with. And I think with who I am now, I probably would have chosen differently then. I don't regret it at all. So many good things came out of it. It's when the Moon Deck kind of was birthed, and so many other amazing things. So it's been a lot of amazing, deep teachings, and this is a little more abstract, but I see our soul or our spirit kind of as this central cord that runs through us in our body on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. And to me, this cord is what I've carried through lifetimes, whatever you need to call it, but there's this essential core aspect that I believe we have. And then there's these other cords that wrap around it as we move through this life and learn things and things we want to learn. So during that crumbling, the positive, although it felt very dark, like the shamanic journey during it, the positive thing was that this essential cord became stronger, but these old cords that were not self-loving kind of like they got just as shook as I did, if this makes sense. So at the foundation, so much of my persona and belief system got uprooted that one in particular, like unraveled from my core. And I was like, holy shit. And I saw this kind of self-hating voice get rocked off of the center. And I saw it for what it was. And I saw how it wants to deflect light and love and positivity. And so seeing that, does that make sense? I feel like it's so abstract. Okay, it's like, woo. But it made sense to me. But it was it was amazing to see that. And then the deeper work began. So that was the positive path. Like now that I'm on the other side of it, and this beautiful crystallization and integration is happening where I'm stepping into my power more, so much of my magic that went dormant in that relationship is reawakening. New parts of me are coming forward. There's a new heart-centered confidence. I'm more clear in what I want in a partnership and what I want from myself, and boundaries that have come forward. That's the positivity that as you reach that integration phase, because you didn't ignore and push and block yourself from the true healing that needs to happen, whether that takes a couple years, which is what it took for me, or a few months or whatever it is, just trusting that time does come, and pushing it away or numbing yourself or pretending it's not there, or jumping into a new relationship, whatever our shit is. Don't judge yourself if you did it, because you did it and then, you move on. But I'd like to promise you that if you do step forward into the deep healing and get the support that you need, that integration process will happen. And it's why we're here in this life. Like, if nobody knows what the fuck they're doing, not my dad who thinks he has everything figured out, or like nobody. We are all here for the first time, figuring it out as we go. And so just being really loving to yourself through those ups and downs, and even loving to others who maybe aren't as spiritually evolved or aren't having compassion, that they're also learning the tools that they have. And a good friend of mine who lost her mom and got a divorce in a similar year as me said, I was like, oh, we really could have worked it out because we're both amazing people, my ex. And I was like, she's like, no, you couldn't have, or you would have. I was like, oh, like, it's like, and she's like, you guys just didn't have the tools then. We just didn't have the tools, and we just weren't compatible in the way that could work through our issues. So that deep acceptance is also part of the positivity.
I love that. Thank you for sharing, both. I love one of the definitions of grace that I share a lot in my yoga classes, if you've heard it, and it's basically, grace is hold out one hand. Everyone, hold out one hand. And hold all of your struggles, the darkness, your fears, like pain, trauma, all of it. Hold it. And then hold out your other hand. And hold all of the goodness and all of the light, all of the amazing experiences and relationships, holding all of that so in balance with the other hand, holding both hands equally. That is the definition of grace. And I think all of you really hold that and inspire me in that way. And let us all, I was out of balance for a long time. I was only holding the lightness because that's what everyone needed from me, and that's who I was. And I am that, but I also have shadows and darkness, and I've been through a lot of hard things. And it's okay to feel those things. And I needed to feel those things. And, that crazy experience on New Year's came through because I needed to experience anger, and I needed to experience the fullness of the experiences of cheating in our past. And because I didn't handle it then, it came up in another way. And it's not bad. It's not good. It's now good, as you said. Years later, it's now good. And even after the night happened, I looked to Adi and said, this is going to be so good for us. And he's like, I'm not ready for that shit. Like, I'm not ready for that positivity shit right now. And I get it, but I did know. I had the awareness to be like, this is going to be good for us. And it has been the best thing. It rebalanced our masculine and feminine. It rebalanced all of it. Because he was like this guy who did all these bad things to me. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I can also do these things. Like, I have darkness too. I didn't know that. And so since that happened 4 years ago, really sinking into my shadows and my darkness and the pain and the anger and trying to hold it equally. So thank you for that.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to drop in here really, really quickly and remind you that we've got our 21-day habit reset challenge happening right before the holidays. We're going to focus on food and drinking. If you're heading into the holidays and you want to make sure that you get those nasty, nasty habits in check, we've got the challenge for you. All you got to do is go to 21dayhabitreset.com and we'll get you taken care of. 21dayhabitreset.com. See you there.
Tricia? Yeah.
Well, no, I was just going to touch on what I've heard in all of those sharings is that everybody's going to some past thing. And that, like, that's a big thing of being positivity, that we could be, it might feel easier sometimes to feel positive about the future, but that we're still holding on to, but I should have done better. Like, I guess I shouldn't have married him, or I shouldn't have done that, or I should have realized this earlier. And that, if you also know me, I hate the word should. But we so often are looking back into I should haves and making ourselves wrong for things that have already happened. It already fucking happened. And it might have been really bad, and you might have really messed up and done something or chose wrong, but it already happened. So that is what everybody was mentioning, like the key to being able to be positive about the future, but more importantly, the now, is seeing that already happened. So how can I choose a better thought moving forward and accept myself right here? And again, like, you don't even have to go to the that happened for me so that I could learn this. But you probably, it's shaping you, that it did somehow happen for you. But if you can't see that in that moment because that seems too far off, well, that happened. Period. Yeah.
I want to open this up to questions because I think that I really want to make this tangible as it can be and not abstract. Like anything that you want from here, even an example of something that you've been through, if you have a specific question for one of us. If not, we'll just keep rambling. But I would like to make this an interactive conversation. If anyone has a question or conversation point, we only have 10 minutes, so yes. Sup, Jack?
I didn't have the tools like you were talking about before to have a successful relationship or even know how to have a, excuse my French, fucking relationship. I know the kids are here. I know. And so my question is, it's like that trauma's happened and the things that happen, I am living amends for that. But it still seems really hard to let it go and to say, okay, yeah, now what? How can we A, forgive, or B, realize that we are human and we're all going to continue to make mistakes. I think like the last girl was talking about. And so my question is, when you say it happened, now what? How do you apply that to a coupleship that is committed and basically allowing both to heal and forgive both? Because in the process of me traumatizing her, I get defensive and vice versa, and she throws up walls, and we, in tune, I think, start to create more trauma towards each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if anybody didn't. No, you totally did.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And also that you're owning, all of that yourself, like that's huge. And I hope you acknowledge yourself for that, in that that's a part of the forgiveness. Yeah, so he was saying, I was saying like that happened, but obviously that can be hard to move through, though that happened. But there's still, and especially in a coupleship of relating when they're still being wounded by what happened. So it's not even just one person getting over it, but the other.
The triggers are just popping up, and she's getting triggered, or I'm getting triggered, and it's just totally bringing us back to that whole incident.
Yeah. They're both constantly being triggered by what happened. So I'm going to be talking later. Are you staying the whole day? Yeah. So I'm talking later about like how I do shift my own thoughts. But what I'm going to share right now is a very simple, for me, and I'll give the mic to other people too to talk to, that this might help. And it sounds so simple that it's easy for people to dismiss that it will not work. And that's, most of my stuff seems so simple. But so for me, this very simple, what I call the forgiveness practice, is that when you get stuck in, so whether it's you going back into I messed up, or you are being triggered by the other person, to just keep repeating, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. Keep repeating it until you feel that energy dissipate. And it sounds too simple. So this I forgive you could be to yourself. I forgive you. I forgive you. And it gets you out of being in that wounded, triggered place so that you can then actually be coming from a grounded, connected place to then have the conversation and move forward. Or whether it's you being triggered by him or whatever, you guys are triggering each other, you can either be saying it out loud, maybe that would even be more impactful. But I do this with people that trigger me regularly in my life, and I can't change them. And it's even like I held on to things, held on to things, like a person I know did something to someone else, and it doesn't even have anything to do with me, but every time I hear that person's name, every time I see that person, I am like, and that I just started this thing, and I would just keep going, I forgive you, in my head, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. And soon, that simple mantra starts to dissipate. Why are you even judging them anyway? Why are you judging yourself? Like all of it starts to dissipate the levels of shame and judgment and stuff that come up. It sounds simple. Try it, because it at least like takes you out of all the emotion, gets back to that, and then allows you to kind of have a conversation from your heart.
I think writing is so therapeutic. It changed my life. Yes. Yeah, it changed my life in so many ways. because I was holding so much here and here, all of it. And then when you were triggered by something or angry with something, but being able to, my therapist is the one who actually really encouraged me to start writing it all out. Any of the worries I had or concerns or angers, getting it out on paper seems to help it dissipate in some ways too, exactly how her tool was as well. So there's just a lot of ways to kind of help it not bubble up so much. And then that pattern is recreated in your brain and it helps your brain retrain. So,
Take one more question and then we're going to end this panel. Anything you want to say, share, ask a specific question to one person? Yeah.
Go through whatever is happening that sort of brings you to the other side. And you go through the growth and you go through that, the transformation, and you realize on the other side that a lot of, at least in my experience, I realized that a lot of people that were in my immediate sort of family circle, like Aarona, like you were saying, we're not really on the same, spiritual path, or didn't have the same philosophies, and, are, like, ultimately the relationships just completely change, and there's a grief in that as well. And I guess I'm just curious, it's really, I don't have a specific question, but like, how do you deal with that?
You're saying, let me make sure I understand. So after you go through growth
and changes and experiences, and then all of a sudden you look around and then your family isn't like reflecting back the level the vibration that you're putting out. And it's not like better or worse, it's just they're not the same. This happens constantly. This happens all the time in all things. Also in the way that you move your body and the foods you eat. To me, I don't always want a smoothie. Sometimes I need something more nourishing because I did some deep work that day, or I just need to drink water because, yes. And then with family and relationships, as we're growing and shifting and changing and releasing and shedding layers of who we are, if they're not doing the similar work with themselves, which is usually the case, sometimes they might just be doing different work, but in my world, sometimes I realize like they're not working on themselves in the same way, and maybe on the outside it looks like they are, but then when you get deeper, they're not. And that can be really draining to be around, like we talked about. I think that that's your answer, and for me, I handle it different ways. Sometimes it has to be a hard boundary. That's happened with my own mother. She was out of my life for 5 years because it was not healthy for me as I started having children. And then I wasn't ready to deal with that because I had 2 children to raise. So I put it on the side and had a hard boundary. And then after a few years, let her back in and decided I was ready to do that work. So that was more of like my own stuff. It was like I wasn't mature enough or had this energetic space or the capacity to show up and do that work because I knew it was a huge thing to go through. So I'm in that right now and it feels really good and safe, but it's taken 20 years. And then there's other certain people in my life that it's like, I have to kind of ask myself, if it's not from a selfish place and it's more like, do I want my kids to be around and like my future kids? Would I want my best friend to be around this person? I don't want my children to grow up around anyone other than the lightest beings. They can be around no one but my family, my husband and I being the family, and each other, and that would be great. If they're gonna have outside my girlfriends in the home and people around, they need to be walking the walk and showing them how to be, act, and I have actually let go of friends just for the way they speak in front of my children, the way they act, and then the way that they treat me more than one time. People make mistakes, but if they keep showing up in that way, to me, they're not worthy to be in my family. And that's really high level, but if you're in here, you're doing this kind of work, that's the people you need in your life. And less is more. And as someone who is like cheerleading squad and like in every single group and loves everyone, it's really hard for me to let that part of me die and be like, no, I need to choose my friends so wisely, and I deserve better than that. And if I can't give that love to myself, my children deserve that. The example of what a real friend and person and family member and woman and man needs to, like that level of decency and respect. So it's like a self-respect thing, and also just continuously checking in and making sure, like, sometimes they're not even doing anything bad or wrong or hurting you or wronging you. They might just not be vibrating at the same level and doing the work, and that might be hard for you to be around. So then you can just kind of phase out a little bit, and then you just don't see them as much, and that's fine. We're all phasing in and out and doing our own stuff, right? So there's different ways to do it depending on, like, it can be boundaries, it can be just kind of phasing out, it can also just be some space, or it can be like a hard, like, we can't do this anymore, it is dysfunctional, which is also really hard, but also so freeing, because then you're like, I choose me, you know?
I just add to that too, everything that Sophie just said. And because I've grown up dealing with codependency, that can be very tricky sometimes, because I'm like, I have to close every circle. And that's something I've let go of recently, that I have to close every circle. I used to really take pride that I had to close every circle and communicate through everything. And I've learned recently I don't. But I would also, in addition to what Sophie said, that sometimes also if you're getting triggered, it's an opportunity to see why it's triggering. And if someone's like going through a time in their life where they're maybe doing something that you used to do, like whether that's over processing constantly or whatever it is, and it's like triggering you, because it oftentimes can be reflective of something you carry in yourself. And just to, if you think of yourself when you've been going through confusing times in your life, or you're really in the deep inquiry, and if someone didn't give you that compassion, how that felt to you, and then now the equation's flipped, whether that's the same person or someone totally new, to just try to hold that space and you know, be the woman that you want to be welcomed by. And that's, you know, like when you crave to be welcomed by the women who inspire you, and I'm just using women right now, like, because I think this happens a lot between women, to remind yourself, like, actually, let me be the woman that I so deeply crave to be welcomed by. How do I then do that for others? And to have that compassion on your journey, knowing that someone might be a few steps behind. And then, yeah, then there's the destructive ones, and the ones that just naturally dissolve out, or, you know, and not focusing and fixating on the people who aren't loving and supporting you, and not getting locked into like, well, why not? Why isn't it working that way? And really zooming out and focusing on the love and support that is in your life. And then that starts to expand, and I think sort of takes care of itself, where people fall away, or, you know, and not being afraid to be honest about where you're at, but just doing it with a sense of the compassion you might have once needed once upon a time, when you showed up in a tricky time in life with someone who maybe was a few steps ahead of you. So that would be my take, just to be mindful of that. And then, not to be afraid to have boundaries. And like for me, in my prayers and my intention setting and my personal work, calling in aligned community and calling in aligned support is like really at the core of some of the work I'm doing right now. So as it starts to come in, to be really, really grateful for that. And either the people you love and adore will ride that wave with you or not. And then when it comes to, you know, blood family, I think that's a trickier situation sometimes, but having those boundaries and just how you show up in your body, and taking that pause if you need to before you go to that family event, and just saying like, this is my intention for this is how I'd like to show up. And having that intention sometimes helps than just going in and going into the trigger, which I know is the harder work sometimes. So that would be my take on that.
Yes. Another, what I was going to say is to definitely notice how you feel around people. And then like, I notice like, when I'm with Sophie, I never want to leave. But when I'm with, you know, when I leave some people, I'm like, whew, I'm drained, or like, I kind of feel like I would have felt better just being by myself. And not that there's anything wrong with that person though, because that's also, I've collected so many friends from so many stages of my life, and I still love them so dearly. And there is nothing wrong with them. Nothing. I've just realized where do I feel best, and so where do I want to choose to spend my time? And I've also noticed how I feel in conversations with certain people, whereas I'm really like open, and if you ask me something, then I might tell you like my entire life story in like immediately. And what I've started to notice is, even sometimes with my mother or certain friends, that when it feels like they're asking me a question in the way that they ask, it always feels like they're judging me. And I don't know if they are, or if it's me making that up. But what I've noticed is it always feels like that. And I also realized, why am I giving them all that information? If I don't feel good after I tell them that, what are they going to do with that information? Like if they ask me, how are you feeling today? I could go into like a long journey of all the things that showed up in my day. And then I feel like weird and awkward and vulnerable because of how they receive that or what they say next. And then I realized, well, if they're not the type of person that can receive all of that, if Sophie asks me that, she's going to get all of it, likely. If my mom or another one of my friends who I dearly love, but is in a different space, asks how I'm good. Like, so I've also learned I don't have to exit those people out of my life. When I'm with them, I have boundaries. I realize I don't feel good when we get in this conversation, but I've also given people the opportunity to see they are allowed to grow too. There's some friends from from college days that I dearly love. When we get together, we talk about everybody else. Not necessarily in a bad way. Have you heard what so-and-so's up to? And what about this person? So it's like gossip, but not always bad. But I realized that didn't make me feel good. So I was like, I can't hang out with that person because she doesn't make me feel good. And then I said, what if I changed the conversation? What if I said, hey, let's not talk about people. What are you up to? And brought it back to the present moment and now. So you get to choose and see, and you'll learn. Maybe I don't spend time with this person. Maybe this is a person I just give the good answer to, and then we are like, let's be in the present moment. And that, because for me, I love a lot of people, and they're not all in the personal growth space. And that's cool. And for me to just keep showing up as I am, and I don't have to change them, I can invite them, and not even by saying, hey, let's shift your attitude, but like, let's not talk about that. I want to talk about this tonight instead. Or you don't even have to say, let's not talk about that. You can just start talking about something else and see how that goes. And if you still feel shitty every time you hang out with them, here's your answer.
That's good. I am in that phase right now. I am not necessarily on the other side. So I just want to say thanks, ladies, for all of these tips, because being recently divorced, it's highlighting a lot of relationships, and it's a lot of confusion on the other end from people. They don't know how to react to me. They don't know how to react to him. There's a lot of casualties. And as a codependent woman, it's really hard for me to let go and just kind of really listening to myself of what feels good and what's being mirrored back to me, but also what people I want to be around that feel good, like Sophie, that somebody's going to lift me up and support me in my transitions and times of need. And sometimes I just have to let go. And I feel you because it's hard.
Can I just add one more thing? What you were saying, this might help with the language. I've been really into the phrase like resonance or dissonance. And so if you were at my talk yesterday around intuition, this is a big theme for me. Noticing if you feel dissonance or resonance in the present of someone or a community or environment, and really validating that. Maybe you don't correct it right away or figure out the solution right away, but just starting to observe, like, I feel dissonance here. Is that coming from projection because I'm uncomfortable being vulnerable, or is that actually like there's a dissonance in this vibration with this person? And just starting to listen to that as a first step. I feel, even right now, do you feel resonance or dissonance in your body? Do you feel, and starting to attune to the subtlety that's all around us in our work environments and our families, and just using that as a way to more gracefully self-correct quicker and quicker, and that's going to take time. But the noticing is the first thing, and then that self-correction. And then over time, I really feel like that alignment just sort of takes care of itself. The conversations might be easier to have if you have to have a heart-to-heart and they're not able to do that. Like, just observing that resonance and dissonance, I think, is a huge step. And just doing it when you're driving, doing it now. It's an inner practice that's happening that nobody even needs to know is happening. It's just happening inwardly. And that's the way we bring our yoga practice and these events into our real life minute by minute, is doing this inner, am I resonant or dissonance? Am I contracted or expanded? And starting to validate and observe what you're feeling, and then trusting the roadmaps that unfolds before you as a result of that observation.
And all of it's connected. Like, it all comes back, like from our yoga practice to intuition. Like, it's all in inner knowing that's within you, and continuously to reevaluate. And in this panel specifically, we're talking about positivity, but asking yourself, Does this make me feel good? Positive. Is this bringing positivity to my life? If it's not, evaluate that and figure out the best way to handle it. There's no easy answer. There's a lot of different types of relationships. There's a lot of reasons that you are or aren't attracted to someone, or someone does or doesn't bring positivity to your life. Your own growth, your own changes, and theirs, and the world around us, and all of the other factors, right? There's a lot of factors that come into to play here. But at the end of the day, to simplify, does this make me feel good? Does this relationship, does this activity, does this whatever it is? If not, time to reevaluate. Thank you so much. Yay. Lunch? Lunch?
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.